Hi, welcome to Crimson Glass on YouTube, and this is Writing Fool Me Twice, Book 2. I promise you I didn't forget. I know it exists. It'll be here eventually. So I used to do these vlogs all the time. I did a lot of them in 2020, and I think that there's something to the fact that 2020 was my most productive year. I wrote 3 novels, edited 2 of them. I published a ton of flash fiction. Just an all-around good year for me. And I've been trying to think about why, and it was because I was doing videos where I was talking about my process. So I thought I'm going to bring back my vlog series. I'm going to bring it back with Fool Me Twice because I am in the middle of discovery on that. I'm going to use visuals. Yay for me. Visuals that will explain what I'm talking about. I will also link this below. This is like my writing process in general. It goes through everything, but we're really only interested in the part that I'm blocking. It'll be on the next screen, I promise. I wish I had a software where I could move around my webcam, but apparently it's just not possible. I have to save it to a separate file. Whatever. So let's get started. So phase 1 is called discovery. This is the first thing I do when I start writing. I plan, and I got the term discovery from my favorite author, Lani, Diane, who I'm going to link in this video below. And there's also, I'm going to give you more information about her later. And you always start with the idea, the premise, all right? Inspiration. Usually falls into 3 categories: what ifs, rewrites, tropes. They are not separate, like they're not like separate categories. They are like, they work together. They are not necessarily, there's a word I'm looking for, but I can't really think about it. They're not like, they're not exclusive to each other. Like, it's not like rewrites are also what ifs. They like, so they work together. So I gave you a couple of examples here. So my what if question, what if Jason didn't leave Port Charles in 2000? Then you get my flash fiction, Signs of Life. What if I decide to rewrite Jason's return in 2017? You get Fool Me Twice. And then what if I just pick a trope, which is just like an aspect of writing? It's like it's a plot type that you like. I love marriage and convenience stories. I'm a big romance novel reader. I love historical romance. And if the plot summary says these characters get married, I'm gonna buy the book. I'm gonna buy it. I'm gonna buy it so fast my bank account's gonna get mad at me. I love it. It's like, can't explain it. So Fool Me Twice, as you can see, is a rewrite of Jason's return in 2017. So we started with the premise. I wanted to rewrite Jason's return in 2017. And I knew that in 2018. I knew that in January. I had taken my usual 2-year peace out, General Hospital got stupid break between 2015 and 2016. I only watched, I stopped watching in August of 2015, and I did not come back until literally till August of 2017. Yeah, literally took 2 years, now that I'm thinking about it. During that time, I knew that Franco was dating Elizabeth, so I was like, I see no reason I need to return. They had decided that Billy Miller's Jason was going to just be Jason Morgan. I'm like, but that's fucking stupid. He is a terrible Jason Morgan. He was an excellent Jake Doe. He would have been an excellent Jason Quartermain version of Jason Morgan. You could have written that story. I did write that story. It's on my site. But he was a terrible Jason Morgan leather jacket motorcycle wearing guy. Sorry, Billy Miller, not your fault. They didn't know how to write that character. Story of our lives. I started writing a flash fiction in 2018 that played with some aspects of the story. How to deal with the Franco and Elizabeth. I wanted to know, it was an experiment. I wanted to know if I could write Franco and Elizabeth in a relationship together. The answer is no. Fuck that shit. I break them up immediately. We still have to deal with them. Like, could I write these characters? That flash fiction is still on the site. I will link it below. Some of the stuff that's in there, you will see echoes of it in the book 2, but obviously because book 1 exists, here we are. So that was my premise. I don't have to worry about this stage for book 2 because we have our premise. We already did that for book 1. There's stuff I don't have to do again. All right. After that, I go to brainstorming, and this is when I throw things at a wall and see what sticks. We talk about characters, timeline, setting, narrative thoughts. I did all of this in that previous series. I will either put a title card somewhere or it'll be linked below. That's where I was like, okay, here's my premise. Jason's return in 2017. Who are all the characters that need to be involved? My timeline. What's going on at this point? Setting. Why does Elm Street Pier not exist? That's not the actual thing that happened, And then my narrative thoughts are, what are all the things I'd like to see happen in a Jason and Drew return story, right? What are things I feel like are missing? Like, why have I been pushed to do this? We don't have to do this so much for this story, but I did it anyway. So things I know I have to deal with in book 2 is everything I did in book 1. The really interesting thing about book 1 is it ended up being a little bit of a discovery all by itself. It was creating this universe and putting these people into places. The whole point of book 1 is to maneuver people into a position so that I could do the rest of the story the way I want to. I think that's just how it is. And so like I set up a bunch of things. Now I have to deal with it. So I have, for example, Jason and Elizabeth have gotten back together because that's who I am as a person. By the way, this is going to have tons of spoilers for book 1. So you should just turn around now, click out, click, goodbye, go read the book. It's down below. All right. So, Jason and Elizabeth are together, but, I think that there are hints that Cameron's not super okay with it. He's got abandonment issues that we addressed in book 1. So we have to continue with that. Sam and Drew are divorcing, separated. It's not going well. Sam's character is in a dark place. I got some shit from that from a Sam fan, but, don't care. I don't like Sam. I don't think she's not an interesting character to write, because she's a chameleon and she changes based on the guy she's with. So like it makes it really difficult to write because there's not a lot of character traits for her. And I guess you could also choose to make that her character is like, so that's where we're going with this. Like, who is Sam when she's not in a relationship? Desperate, fucking crazy, insecure, piece of shit, trash, destructive bitch. in a word. But if you are a Sam fan and you can handle a little bit of tearing somebody down to rebuild them, this might be the story for you. I'm going to tear her down a lot in books 2 and 3, though. Spoiler alert. So if you can't handle it, I'm not your girl. I'm sorry. Sorry. So I have to deal with that Sam stuff. There's of course Valentine and Helena's memories. We ended the book with Stefan being found. Like there's all these kind of pieces I have to pick up and deal with. So the first thing you do is like you make a list of like, all right, what's all the shit I left on the table? The Susan Moore murder, which by the way came out of nowhere. All I was going to try to do was explain how Victor knew about Jason and Drew being twins, and all of a sudden I've got Monica being the reason Drew got dumped into the foster system. I'm like, that wasn't supposed to be there. Now I have to sit down. And when I got to editing, I knew I could either do two things. I could cut that because I knew I'd have to deal with it, or I could keep it. And I thought, this is interesting enough and might tickle the fancy of a couple of readers I have. Because I have some readers who have been watching the show for a long time, and there are people who still remember Susan Moore. So that's what we did. So brainstorming is just throwing everything at the wall, making a list of everything I want to, like, so, and for a sequel, it's what did I leave on the table that I have to fix here? And then where do I want my characters to be kind of at the end of this journey? And that's kind of harder to do when you know that you're doing a multi-book series, because then you have to break their story into pieces. And that was like, this is where Fool Me Twice fell apart for like a year, because I had real trouble dividing up the characters by book. And I have solved that issue, like I always do. Say it together with me, fellas. I added another book. It's how I fixed my Mad World problem. It's how I fixed my like Broken Girl problem. It's how I fix every problem. I just add a book. Mad World was supposed to be one book. And then I was like, I want to rewrite the Panic Room. So book 1 became book 2. And then I didn't feel like we had dealt with Rick enough. So there was a book 3. And I realized we hadn't done with the rape enough. So it was anyway. So I added a 4th book. And now what I've been doing for the last month is retaking all the things I know it needs to happen in the series and breaking them apart by book. And I finally did it. Yay, we finally left the brainstorming stage after a year. I'm so excited. And yes, just giving myself more space. Because here's why it fell apart. Because I would get done the brainstorming, and then I would move into the next section. Let's talk about the next section. Structure. How do I make this thing a fucking book? And this is where I'm going to tell you about Lani, Diane, who I fucking love, and you should go buy this book immediately. And if you think I'm telling you, I think you should go buy this book immediately. I bought it immediately. I literally bought it immediately. I pre-ordered this shit. It came out on January 19th, I think. And I bought it, and then I highlighted the shit out of it. Because there was stuff in here I still hadn't, like, really gotten my head wrapped in I would listen. Sorry, I just love her so much. She is story guru and podcaster. She's got a podcast called How Story Works. She has a ton of different podcasts, and all she talks about story, and it's just awesome. And we could talk about this for years and days, and I have. It's not the first time I've shilled for her. This is not sponsored. It's just, this is available for free on Kindle Unlimited. Go read it now. Sorry. Anyway, structure. Structure is how you turn all of your ideas and put them into, like, you put them into a bowl and then you dump out a book. Stuff's got to happen in order. Stuff's got to happen in a way that like, you ever read a book and you're like 10 pages in, you're like, is something going to happen? And then you're 50 pages in, you're like, is something going to happen? And then you get 100 pages in, you're like, you know what? That ceiling looks really boring, right? Like, you know how you want to write your story so that you feel like you're getting somewhere and you don't want it to drag. So that's where structure comes in. So it's the pacing. And I'm going to talk about it in two ways here. I don't want to get too deep into it because you should go buy the book. And we'll talk about it in other videos. Like there are other projects. We're going to do a deep dive in other projects as well. So I'll talk about two things: the central narrative conflict and anchor scenes. Central narrative conflict is what is the thing that gives your book a beginning, middle, and end. Like, and this is like a really super important thing for you to think about, and for me to think about when I am structuring a book that is part of an overall series. It is like a big mistake I didn't make with Mad World, because I didn't know what I was doing in 2018. Like, I wasn't really taking it seriously. I didn't really start breaking this down for myself until 2020, and I think my books are better for it, to be honest. And it's, I mean, there's a definition in here. I think I opened right to it. A narrative conflict upon which the structure of the story is built. My mom used to teach it in ELA when she was writing fiction. Somebody wants something so. All right. And that is a good way of talking about, like, the protagonist, antagonist. Protagonist and antagonist are not bad guy, good guy. It's guy who wants something is the protagonist, and antagonist is guy who doesn't want guy to have something. It's blocking the goal. And that's all a protagonist and antagonist is. And I think that's, like, important to kind of think about, because so often we just think good and bad. It's like, oh, that's the villain. But sometimes the villain is a protagonist. And I think it's fun when you do it that way. And it's usually, actually, the protagonist is usually the villain. Because the villain, especially in a superhero movie, Thanos is the protagonist of Infinity War. He wants the Infinity Stones. The Avengers would like to stop him. They are the antagonists in that story, right? So then you do your anchor scenes. She tells you about 7 anchor scenes. I've talked about them at length in other videos. These are scenes that help you structure it so that you are, it helps you create pacing that introduces the conflict, escalates the conflict, and then resolves the conflict. And then they are separated by acts, and I'll talk more about them later. So structure. Structure is where the story has been really hard to do, because I have put Jason and Drew at the center of everything because this is their story and they should be at the center of everything. But the problem is that they're at the center of everything. So at the end of book 1, I have Valentine going off to Turkey. So Jason and Drew talk about going to Turkey, and then they go to Turkey. But you know what? They're involved in the Valentine storyline, but Susan Moore's murder is being investigated over here, so they should probably know about that. Drew does, Jason doesn't, so I have to deal with that. And then Franco's harassing Elizabeth over here, and, like, so Jason needs to be involved in that. Sam's divorcing Drew down here. Drew needs to be involved in that. And then, you know, they got kids. You know, Jake is dealing with stuff, and Danny's, like, you know, Danny and Scout, and it's just like, an Oscar, like, and that's just off the top of my head. And then there's the world around them. You've got, you know, Carly on a slow burn to stuff that's going to happen in book 3 and 4. You have to, you know, there's the romance plot between Sam and Drew and Jason and Elizabeth, in addition to the Franco and like, it's just, I had trouble figuring out how to make the storyline mesh and be and, like, make sense. Like, things had to happen in an order that made sense. And my act 3 is going to be really short because and there's, like, things like the Susan Moore murder can't be, like, still a thing after Franco does this thing later that I'm, you know, spoiler alert, I'm not going to tell you, but I'm not going to tell you that. I'm not going to give you real spoilers for book 2, because you want those, you go to Patreon. How do you make those things mesh and be put in an order where it makes sense that they come back from Turkey and then they're getting divorced and they're also investigating their mother's biological mother, and Jason's having issues, and they're having couple issues, and then Carly's off having issues, and Michael is being a douchebag because of Nell, and so, like, Michael, you know, Jason's involved in that, and, you know, there's the boys and Cameron and Spencer, and Spencer's trying to make Valentine pay for shit, and Trina's like, you should probably not do this. And then that's not even talking about the Nicholas and Britt and Lucky and Luke over there working on other stuff and not telling anybody in Port Charles. So you get tired just listening to me, because, like, that's how I felt for the last fucking year. Do you see why it had to be 4 books? Do you see why I had to add an extra book? The minute I added another book, it all got easy. And that is what I've been doing this week. I have been working on structure. Whew. I'm not gonna I'm tired just thinking about it. And we've been here for 15 minutes. So this is a good time for me to stop talking about it here. And then I will report back to you because I am currently out of structure and I'm moving on to summarize. So I take the structure and I take those scenes and then I create a brief summary of each act to get a sense of what happens in order to get to anchor scenes. So I list the anchor scenes and like what happens in this plot to get to that anchor scene, what happens, and then I kind of summarize what I want to happen in the subplots. And that is what I am working on today. I'm gonna go eat lunch because it somehow got to be 1:30. I'm gonna go eat lunch and go deal with that. And then come back and do a process video for my Patreons. So yeah. I hope you guys are happy to have these vlog series back. I also ran about General Hospital, as you might have noticed, somewhere in the middle. So, you know, if you're interested, I'll go through the rest of this real quick. So after summary, we go into plot sketching. Plot sketch is where I take my summaries and I turn them into detailed plot sketches. I make a summary of each scene individually, because summary is just like the big moments, and then you want to have your little moments too. And the plot sketch is not like finalized. It tends to be really long. I'll even I fill in the subplots here, and a lot of my my plot sketches turn into like details and like dialogue, and I'll give you I plot out the scenes beat by beat, sort of. I'll come back and talk to you more about that when we're in that stage, and then the final couple steps, I break down the chapters and individual scenes, and then I do a soundtrack, which is how I use it to write it. I mean, I give it to you guys if you want it. But I use it to write with. I pick an emotional theme for each chapter and choose a song. I also pick lyrics out of that song that really fit that chapter. It helps me as part of my process, and then I share it with you guys. So that is my discovery phase. Like I said, we are here, which is the furthest we've ever been on this story. Right, I'll see you guys probably next week because we'll be working on Fool Me Twice a lot this summer. All right, have a great day. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.